Can you take us through the process of how you evaluate an acquisition target?
Number one question, is there a strategic fit? Number two, can we add and co-create value together? And third, can we get at a value which is right? Only if those three things are true, then you end up making an acquisition. The more you worry about future, you're taking your eye off from what you're doing today. So that's a typical thinking process in identifying and then closing a deal.
Okay. But is there a secret which you can share?
For me, a red flag is
Welcome back to HUL After Hours. Today, we have a very special guest with us whom we managed to catch just before he boarded his flight to London, Ritesh Tiwari. Ritesh has spent 26 years doing transformative roles in Unilever and has left an indelible mark on the finance function and Unilever at large. He's as famous for his sharp perspectives and inspirational quotes as much as for the impeccable way he shows up every single time. An avid golfer, tech enthusiast, and always obsessed with future, Ritesh until recently was the CFO of HUL. He's now going on to become Unilever's Head of M&A, Treasury and Ventures. Ritesh, welcome to HUL After Hours.
Thank you.
Ritesh, 26-year stint, right, across India, Singapore, Malaysia, London, and recently CFO of HUL. But let's go back to the beginning, before all these boardrooms and everything came up. Why HUL? And what is so special for finance in HUL?
Yeah. So I tell you, the whole journey started 26 ago, and there were two reasons why HUL happened. I'll say 2 plus 1, and I'll talk the plus 1 as well. The first was I worked at PwC auditing HUL as a CA article trainee when I was studying for CA. And I had experience of coming, auditing HUL, meeting a lot of leaders in the business. I was at the branch, Bombay branch, auditing there. When I just started to interact with people, I'm like, wow, this is a company I would love to come and work. There's a sheer quality of minds which were around. The energy which the business had, which a consumer-facing business always has. I said, I would love to be part of this energy. That was one big reason why I joined. And the second reason was I come from a very humble family. For us, making ends meet was a big job. And I was born and brought up in a small chawl where toilet was outside the house. And I learned that point in time, if you get a job in HUL, you also get an apartment to live in. And then I did ask that point in time what it takes to get a job here. So I was explaining the process, and I said, you also need to be CA rank holder. And I said, now I know what I need to do for my CA finals. I prepared very well, luckily got a rank, and came and interviewed in HUL. And the plus 1 comes. I almost missed my final interview. At the same time, when I had my final interview, I had a conflict. I was working as article trainee with PwC, and there's a very important client presentation. So it was like, should I go for the client presentation, which I'm supposed to do as part of the job, or go for the interview, which is where my future is? I thought about it. I said, no, ethics comes first. Next day, I came to office, and very dear friend now, Anuradha Razdan, she was that time the management trainee working for recruitment. I requested her, and she placed my request to the panel. They were interviewing people on day 2 as well, and they allowed me to get interviewed on day 2. And that's how they ended up joining HUL after that. So it has been an amazing journey of last 26 years plus. And I have always been attracted to finance. I like money management. CA was the cheapest course I could study, and which is what I did. And hence, I started my career as an accountant. But it is only job at HUL that made my career from an accountant to a full end-to-end finance professional.
Wow, oh, that's great. That's a great story. You said this, I think there are many such stories, right? HUL is known as the CEO factory. But what people miss out is HUL is also a CFO factory, right? And bulk of the CFOs across industries, not only in FMCG, have some HUL background. I have been ex-HUL. Why is it so? What is so different in finance and HUL?
See, a typical career in finance could be very different compared to what experience you get in HUL when you work as a finance professional. You, of course, have a big job as finance that you do, which is being a steward for the company. You have to manage risk. You have to manage controls. But at HUL, you also participate in running the business, along with sales colleagues, along with marketing colleagues, along with supply chain colleagues, HR colleagues. That, to my mind, really defines how we are able to bring our finance talent up. the kind of business participation that we do. Finance owns along with the business strategy of the business. Finance along with the business strategic resource allocation. How do you drive growth? It's not only a job where you end up doing two things, which is manage the books of the company and manage the cost base of the company. This is how typically a finance job gets defined. But in our company, apart from doing these two great things, equally important, how do you can contribute to the growth agenda of the business? And more importantly, we're a catalyst. Catalyst for change, catalyst for transformation. So finance career teaches you all these four phases, which you need to learn and grow as a chief financial officer, which is why I'm not surprised today we are a CFO factory.
And it goes the other way around also. As marketeers, even we are expected to know finance stuff, right? It's not only in one direction on that. So I think that's really good, because that makes both CEOs and CFOs come out of HUL in a much better way. I think. Thank you for that. In this podcast, Ritesh, actually, we talk about a lot of big, bold moves of HUL, right? And most of which are successful, thankfully, and that's why we are here where we are. But also some which are not very successful, right? And we learn from it and we experiment and pivot. Today, we want to talk about M&As, right? And that's also a role which you're going to go ahead and do it for entire Unilever. So let's deep dive on that. Sure. Can you take us through the process of how you evaluate an acquisition target?
M&A always comes step two. First comes portfolio strategy. So the way we always go around doing it, first decide what's the portfolio we want. What are the demand spaces we want to operate as a business? Then you make a good judgment out of all the demand spaces that we want to operate to create value for our shareholders. What demand space we present, what we could be present by extending our existing brands into different formats, what we can fill up positions by bringing brand from the global stable of Unilever and making them successful in the country. And if after doing all of that, we don't have a solution, then of course we have to do bolt-on mergers and acquisition. So it always goes through that thinking first, what's the strategic portfolio need at this point in time? And once you identify the portfolio need, then of course you go and hunt for assets as to what you want to end up buying. Even there, the thinking has to be very clear. Ultimately, whatever we buy, it has to make sense for all our shareholders. And hence, number one question, is there a strategic fit? Number two, can we add and co-create value together? If answer to those first two things are true, then third, can we get at a value which is right? Only if those three things are true, then you end up making an acquisition. So that's a typical thinking process in identifying and then closing a deal.
Okay. But is there a secret which you can share?
For me, a red flag is innovation burn rate. If I see a business which is growing very well, but it is growing very well because of a very high amount of innovation rate, then I'm not very sure about it. Does the business have a core on which you can create more platforms of innovation? Then the business will be there for years to come. Otherwise, we know it's a very hard slog of keep innovating to keep the growth going. To me, that's a first red flag. Then in financial term, there's a concept called terminal value of the business and enterprise value of the business. So enterprise value is a total value which a business has. And the terminal value is the value which you put till eternity. Now, higher the ratio of terminal value to enterprise value, poorer the asset is. Lower the ratio of terminal value to enterprise value, better is the quality of the asset. So when we evaluate a business case for any acquisition, this is one parameter I always zoom into first.
Okay. Well, that's very interesting. So the ratio of terminal value to enterprise value is something which you base your decision on. I think that's quite interesting. Is there a thumb rule? 50, 60, 80?
It's just lower the number, better it is.
Okay. So our job is to find those jewels.
And then between the two, it's judgment which comes in then ultimately.
Okay. When we do that, is there also an angle, Ritesh, on saying that, you said a portfolio fit is important, yeah? But HUL doesn't go after small bets, right? We go after big, bold bets which we really can scale and so on and so forth. So how do you look at, for example, this particular bet can become 1,000, 2,000 crore business in future or not, and so on and so forth? Is there...
I think both when we invest money in the business for typical brand growth or a category growth, or when we spend money for deploying on M&A, there is one simple concept we use. What's the net present value of the future opportunity? I might have a very large business today, but the future growth of that might be smaller. You might have a small today opportunity, but in future, this might become much bigger. Let me take an example of home care. We know that incremental share of a laundry liquid will be far higher net present value than incremental share of a laundry bar today, because consumers are shifting from bars to powders, powders to liquids. So we always have that strategic lens. Something might be smaller today, but that's a trend which will become substantial in times to come. And this is where our resource allocation goes. So allocating resources across time horizon is extremely critical, apart from, of course, putting resources behind urgent needs of today. So that's the lens we end up applying. And hence, for me, the deal is not about how big the business is today when you're acquiring, but if the opportunity on which the business is anchored upon, if that's a big opportunity, we will lean in. Let me quote an example to you. We acquired a company called Oziva. When we acquired this business roughly less than 3 years ago, it was an 80 crore business, EBITDA loss. But we saw all the ticks that you wanted to see. It's the demand space we wanted to operate in. It's the founders, both the way they have run the business, Aarti and me, we exactly believe in that concept, in that business model. We saw that we can create value together by adding resources and unlocking synergies together. And if we managed to ensure the business comes at the value which we think was the right value for HUL shareholders. Once we saw all those 4 ticks, we acquired 51%. From making whatever an EBITDA loss, we now have already broken even, and we have single-digit margin that we made from the business. And we know the demand space of health and well-being, and where very angular the brand Oziva is sat at, it will make fabulous value creation going forward. So for us, it's more the opportunity size rather than the current size.
Ritesh, now that you mentioned Oziva, I think a question which comes to my mind is, when we acquire brands, and like you said, founders who are, very, committed and driven, but then you have what I would call them as speedboats, and then you have a mothership with this HUL.
Of course.
Right? How do you ensure that the speedboat docks into the mothership and the mothership doesn't reject it? Because HUL is a jungle after all, right? So how do you ensure that match which is there?
Yeah, I think it's an extremely important question. Today, when you acquire a business, the families come together when you acquire the company. And to some extent, it's very important that in the initial years, when the brand is small, business is still smaller, you nurture and give a lot of attention to it. The way we do it, for example, in all these cases, Minimalist, Oziva, we have founders working with us after the acquisition, so that the entire learnings we'll get, apart from the brand, but the way the business has been run, we want to learn that. And because HUL is a learning organization, for us, learning always comes first. We call ourselves very proudly lifelong learners. And that's exactly what we do. It's very important that you don't see M&A as a transaction. The moment you see M&A as a transaction or deal, I think you lost half the plot there. M&A is a decision which is a strategic business decision to change the portfolio and hence change the value trajectory of the organization. The moment you see it like that, you will understand that closing a deal is, in my mind, probably job half done. The balance 50% job happens the way you integrate the company, the way you unlock synergies, the way culture integration happens. If these things don't happen well, you will never unlock the value which is possible to come from an M&A deal.
Ritesh, that's awesome, because recently I remember attending a session from Mihir, and whatever he talked about, how he scaled Oziva, etc., is part of my notes, and we are actually taking those learnings and putting it across our other brands. I think learning goes both ways, like
exactly.
you said, right?
Exactly.
So that's really, really nice. Actually, I think the Oziva story itself deserves a separate podcast, so we'll have that soon. Going back, Ritesh, you said that you decide basis portfolio, fit and so on and so forth. But how do you make the decision on build versus buy? Like, when do you decide that you need to buy something versus when you want to build it internally? Because ultimately it's a resource allocation decision. So how do you do that?
Always build more and buy less. Ultimately, we are a very large company. We have amazing amount of talent, resources, R&D capabilities. And with our resources, it's always great you end up building something. But in those situations where, and I keep saying that any portfolio work, there are 4 different ways of getting the portfolio job done. Either we take our existing large brands and take them to more demand spaces. So when Pond's enters into sunscreen, into serums, into face cleansing, that's a classic example of taking portfolio by leveraging large brands. That's first way of doing a portfolio transformation. Second, you craft our own brands and launch in the market. So launching Sun as a tier 2 dishwash brand, or launching Novology in the area of skincare, by leveraging all our global technology, that's the second example of doing a portfolio transformation. Third, we have amazing brands in the stable of Unilever. We recently bought Liquid IV, Nexus in the country. Sometime back, we had bought Simple, Love Beauty Planet. Hellman's. These are amazing brands which have huge relevance with the Indian consumers. So as and when we see a brand getting relevant in the country, we bring that from the stable of Unilever. Once we've exhausted all those three alternatives of building portfolio, is when then you end up going the route of making the portfolio through bolt-on acquisitions. So the work that we did with Oziva or that we have done with Minimalist are classical example. But it's not only buying brands that we do as part of M&A, also ensuring that capability is also acquired where we want to acquire. So for example, backward integration for palm, where we're integrating the palm value chain and localizing palm in the country, because India produces very less amount of palm oil compared to what the country needs. So more and more we localize palm oil production in the country, better it is for the country.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we believe in. But at HUL, it's always a firm belief for us. Whatever is good for India is good for Hindustan Unilever. We invested recently in two companies, one on plastic recycling and second on solar. Again, these investments go a long way in progressing our ESG agenda. So I do believe that in all these spaces, ultimately it will all bottomly come down to one element, which is how can we collaborate to compound? Very many different ways you can keep collaborating to compound.
Yes.
And that's what, in my mind, any organization will be successful if they learn to keep collaborating to compound.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point which you make there, because what you're saying is M&As is not only about brands and not only about consumer-facing companies, which you actually do. It's also about backward integration. It's also about ESG and so on and so forth.
Exactly.
So that's a great point. It's there. But I think in a certain way, a finance manager's job in HUL is also everyday resource allocation or dynamic resource allocation. So if I have to use the same build versus buy principle on day-to-day decisions, like business cases, launches, extension of a brand, new brand, etc., what are the principles, we can actually take from there?
Yeah. So dynamic resource allocation is an extremely important toolkit that we deploy at scale at HUL. Today, the point I made a little while ago that NPV of the future opportunity is equally important than everything else being put into place. So the way we do is we map our resource allocation very carefully. And there are very simple principles the way you allocate resource. First, you need to know the size of the price, how big the opportunity is. Second, look at ease of capture. How easily can you capture this opportunity? The third lens that we apply and deploy at HUL is time to value. How much time we'll end up taking to realize this value. So that's the resource allocation framework at HUL. Size of the price, ease of capturing, time to value. We deploy this at scale across the business.
But not every move of ours is successful, right? And that's inherently a big organization also. We need to try different things. So do you have an example, M&A or otherwise, of a HUL move where you think we went all in, but then not successful, but we took the learnings and pivoted?
Many cases, and be it M&A, be it a business decision or a brand investment, one should always be clear, something will go amazingly well, something will go just well, and something will not work. It is very important to have a principle of fail fast. So you try things, if it doesn't work, important not to get emotionally attached to the decision and fail fast, so that we can limit the amount of losses that you'll end up incurring. There's a very old English saying, when in a hole, don't dig further.
Yes.
But equally what we learned at HUL is, if something works, then we put entire organization might behind it. So the second learning is, if something works, the way we said fail fast if things don't work. If it works, then scale up fast. That's exactly what we do at HUL. We scale up fast opportunity. Let me take an example of Shikhar. Shikhar started by launching into a few hundred stores. It's the eB2B app that we use to collect orders from Kirana store. That also has changed the way we do business with millions of Kirana stores in the country. And it started as a small pilot. It was successful. We saw that this is one example where to scale up fast. Today, we have more than 1 million outlets in the country where Shikhar is used. More than 80% footprint of Hindustan Unilever, we capture orders digitally. It enables for us to do next day delivery. It has improved the speed of decision making. Some brand launches have not worked. Some brand campaigns have not worked. We always take a pause and learn from it. Because the pity is, if you have done something wrong, which is fine, if you not learn from it, is what will not be right. And we always take a pause and learn from the mistakes we've done so that we don't repeat them.
Yeah, that's great. So fail fast, learn fast is
Exactly
the question. That's great. On that context, some move of HUL, M&A or otherwise, you're really proud of?
I think the latest acquisition that we've done, Minimalist. I think it's a fabulous brand we acquired. It's amazing founders who have created the brand, Mohit and Rahul. super business. It sits at Prestige Skincare, which is where we had a portfolio gap. We wanted to fill the portfolio gap, and it made a lot of sense. It's an amazing brand, fully anchored into science, clean brand, transparent brand. Exactly what HUL stands for is what brand Minimalist stands for, and which is why it was not much of a time we had to take to come to conclusion that's the right next brand that comes to the family.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Actually, while we're talking minimalist, I just want to, you know, get an idea about something which, in your new role, you're going to be wearing the hat, which is Unilever Ventures, right? Can you talk about it? What is Unilever Ventures? Why does Unilever do it? We are an FMCG company. Why get into venture capital? So, what is it all about?
Yeah. So the two different ways to look at it. When you want a company strategically to acquire and then run and then create value together, unlock synergies, you end up going M&A route.
Yeah.
But there are also spaces we want to experiment, we want to learn. This is exactly where the role of venture comes into place, where you take small equity in companies to support their business model, to support the founders, and hence you have a skin in the game because you have some equity in the company. They will be smaller in scale and size. It will require attention and time for them to grow. Someday when they become material and it's a right fit, we might end up taking a strategic decision. But those two are completely mutually exclusive conversations. They're nothing to do with each other. So companies like Minimalist, we had investment from ventures at one point in time. The idea was never that you'll end up acquiring the company. It just happened that in a scrutiny, when we scanned the market, Minimalist came as one of the top companies we should acquire. But the early investment from Minimalist gave a lot of learning to us from Venture Lens. Through Venture Lens, we also invest not only in assets, but also in capabilities. So companies which might be in digital space, we might be in tech space. We also do transactions of small equity purchases in those companies. That's the way we are on the cap table. We learn, we contribute through our learning, we create value in the process. And some of them, when they become more relevant to us, we might also end up looking at them from a strategic lens. So it's a great vehicle, in my view, to learn and always be grounded in the market.
Okay, but is that a competitive advantage for us when we?
It absolutely is. So venture for us is not for the sake of venture. This entire learning of the ecosystem that we get really helps us to improve our own rhythm in the organization. This world is moving very fast. It's super important. Again, goes back to the point I mentioned, collaborate to compound. When you have various number of venture investments that you've done, you use that ecosystem to do better as Hindustan Unilever.
Yeah. No, I also remember Pawan, who's heading it for India. I think when I was the ecom head, we used to have a lot of conversations where we used to exchange notes on saying what are the different kinds of companies he is actually invested in through Unilever Ventures doing and what we can learn from it. So I think that really helps. So thanks for that. Now, actually, I want to move away from M&A.
Sure.
And something which I think is your favorite topic, because whenever I came to you for some guidance on ecom, you always used to push me on saying that, how can I use data and tech to actually get, daily offtakes or monthly offtakes and so on and so forth. We had a lot of conversations on that. So I see you as being obsessed with tech, right? And obsessed with data, obsessed with forecasting and stuff like that. So how do you think finance is going to evolve with tech and AI?
But I think the entire tech revolution which is happening everywhere. As a country in our personal lives today, we use far higher amount of tech compared to we ever used. Our shopping happens online, our banking happens online, all our information gathering, reading, knowledge gaining is happening online. So if as a consumer, I am online everywhere, as a business, no option but to be online everywhere. Consumers are discovering brands online today. They're looking for online fulfillment models today. So as a business, we have to ensure that we completely digitize. And it's mobile first everywhere. And hence in finance function, it is no different. We see different ways of getting efficiency. There was a time where efficiency was the single biggest, let me say, objective for driving tech in the organization. No longer. It's growth now that you work on to unlock driving digital inputs in the organization. And finance function has no different focus than that. Let me quote an example. Every month we do a process called sales and operation planning. It involves all the functions from sales, marketing, supply chain, of course, finance, which leans in. And as an organization, we spend time in stitching a forecast together. Why this forecast is important? Because that becomes a bedrock for us to make choices for resource allocation. That becomes a bedrock for us to make decisions on our network of supply chain, what to produce, how much to produce, where to produce and where to distribute. Now, this happens every month, 12 times a year. Takes few weeks of organization energy. We've now gone live with a machine-learned forecasting process. end to end, it is digitized. This year, we have taken a bet that we will not do 12 cycles of 12 months in a year. We'll only do 8 cycles with all of us co-creating the forecast. But 4 cycles in a year is completely end-to-end machine-driven. Next year, once we are confident this year, which we are every single day getting more confident, we'll flip. 8 cycles will be done end-to-end through machine learning, and then 4 will be through human intervention. I think that balance is very important to strike. And hence, whatever we do first, we have to first think, can I solve this problem using tech? If no, then let's find alternate ways out. That has to be thinking going forward.
That's great. I think I'm just going back to the time when you started the DP function in HUL to now. I think that's a significant journey and how tech and everything has come through. But that's great. But in between all this, Ritesh, I think there is always worry that AI will take away people's jobs, etc., etc. And like you said, HUL doesn't look at AI for efficiencies, but more for growth first. But how should people change? For example, there's this new word called FOBO, fear of being obsolete, right? So how can people stop themselves from being obsolete?
I think it's an important question. I do believe that AI will never take any jobs or people away. But people who use AI will definitely take our jobs away. So if you are somebody who's not using AI, you should be worried today. Somebody else will come who will use AI, will take my job away. The moment you have that lens, I think is important. All of us have to upskill ourselves.
Yeah.
It's not that AI is for my team. I'm a leader. AI is not for me. My team will get it done for me. I spend hours learning about AI. I spend time thinking, how can I do this more efficiently compared to what I have done in the past? I think every person, doesn't matter how senior or how junior you are, you have to start getting comfortable. AI is not what some consultant will come and do it for you.
Yeah.
So you have to do it yourself. So to me, continuous learning is super critical. This is a time where life and world and consumers around us are evolving at a very high pace. We don't want to be left behind. So if we are not dedicating some hours every week on learning, there is something wrong in the way we are operating. That's the only message I will have for people. That don't bother AI. It will never take your job away. But be aware, somebody using AI can take your job away. So just ensure that you're always skilling and upskilling yourself to what's more relevant.
No, that's great. I'm saying AI is not a tech which can be outsourced. That's a one-line summary. Yes, that's great. But what can AI not replace or never replace?
I think the human judgment, the human creativity, the human power of taking risk is very important. Let me flip it. As a CFO, one of the key jobs which I have is to increase the risk appetite of the organization. We all know higher the risk you can take, higher value you can create. Now, you of course cannot take risk without knowing how to take risk, which I mentioned, you have to increase the risk-taking appetite of the organization. We use tech at length to do that. We use various financial processes to do that. We make business capabilities to do that. And in summary, we are able to increase the risk appetite of the organization and hence our opportunity where we can create value.
Yeah, that's good. So now that you've said all that, what is your advice to, youngsters or young Riteshs who are knocking on the door of HUL right now, wanting to be CFO sometime later? What's your advice to them?
I've always few inputs which I provide when people ask me that. And let me just capture a few of them for you. First, it's so important to be always curious.
Yeah.
You are in the learning journey. Doesn't matter how junior, how senior you are. You have to learn always. If you don't have an inquiring mind, very soon you are repeating what you have learned. And then you can only go as far with that knowledge base. So be open, be curious to learn. Number one. Number two, I've seen very often people are obsessed about what's my next job, what's my next role, when I'm getting promoted. That never helps. I'm a firm believer now is wow. The more we focus on today, make today brilliant, future will set and size itself appropriately. The more you worry about future, you're taking your eye off from what you're doing today. Then what you're doing today doesn't happen well. Then you naturally need to worry more about your future. So that's the second advice I will give to someone, which is now is wow. Third, doesn't matter what function you belong to. You might join a company as sales, as marketing, as finance. No longer we can be locked into a function. Business is not run by functions. Business is run by teams. So if you don't have not only appreciation, but working knowledge of other functions, you can never do a good job. So today as a finance professional, I need to have a working knowledge how my supply chain partner thinks. If I don't have that, I will not be able to partner my supply chain function well.
Yeah.
So functional boundaries in the business are disappearing. So when you come fresh in an organization, somebody might have learned finance or marketing or sales. Please bring the attitude that I'm here as a business person. Of course, I'll bring my domain knowledge of a function, but I have to keep my mind open. I have to learn about every function. That's the only way I can contribute effectively to any team. And as I mentioned, businesses are run by teams and not by functions.
Ritesh, that's great advice for young Riteshs who are waiting to knock into HUL. But what's the best advice you have got?
I think winning an argument, losing a person, I would never do. That's what I have learned, and I've got that advice, and I see it in reality that, yes, embrace critical thinking, but never win an argument and lose the person. Be patient at that point in time. That's one advice I have got.
Thank you so much, Ritesh. Now we're going to go to a slightly funner part of the podcast. It's just some rapid fire questions. The questions are written by your team, by the way. So I'm just going to read them out for you. Right. So Ritesh, early morning reviews or late evening huddles?
Any day, late evening huddles. Morning is kept for exercising.
Okay.
And late evening huddles. I think I work at my best.
Okay, that's good. The morning is for golf.
On the weekend, yes. Not on the weekday.
Okay. When numbers don't add up, instinct or investigation?
If I smell something wrong, it's investigation. But usually, team does amazing amount of work. So when numbers don't add up, I think you have to use instinct.
Instinct. Okay.
Which is where the judgment comes in.
I think the way I see it is instinct comes first and then you investigate with that hypothesis later. Yeah, that's fine. Your guilty pleasure brand from the portfolio. I know you love all the brands, but still, if there was one guilty pleasure, one you sneak into the shopping cart every time.
Oh, it's Liquid IV. I play golf, and that 4.5 hours of golf round, Liquid IV hydration keeps me going.
Wow.
I love that brand.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, even my fridge is loaded with like 2-3 packets of Liquid IV. If HUL were to acquire a company tomorrow, right, and we decide that, we want to buy and not build, which category would you bet on?
The two spaces is party happening in the country. Beauty and foods. This is where our capital allocation will be. Beauty first, followed by foods.
Okay, that's great. And foods is not only well-being nutrition types, but
this is foods, the entire package industry.
Food industry. Okay.
In India, there's a lot of value to be created from unpackaged to packaged, from unorganized to organized. This is exactly where we have to keep transforming our portfolio in foods as well.
That's great. What's the one question you always ask before signing the dots on a big deal?
Does the leader buy into the deal? Because A is to close a deal, then B to run and create value out of it. So leader's conviction, in my mind, is very important before you sign on the dotted line.
That's nice. If ChatGPT/AI joined your finance team tomorrow, what would you make it do first?
I'll go and make ChatGPT meet every member of the team, introduce himself or herself, because I want everyone in the team to start using AI. So the more that new team member whose AI team member is popular in the company, the more amount of work will happen. And everybody will learn.
That's great. And on that note, one skill every future finance leader must master.
Communication. Come on. I think it's very important that you're able to narrate your story. Many times one can get lost in many presentations, large Excel sheets. If you can't simply explain something, as the saying goes, you have not understood properly in the first place. I think it's very important to communicate effectively. So that's one skill I would expect.
It's a very interesting take, because when someone asks finance, the first thing that comes into your mind is numbers and be good at mathematics and all this stuff. But lovely take. Thank you. This is from your team specifically. One word your team would use to describe you during results week.
Focused.
Okay. And when you're not allocating resources in HUL, what do you do?
I'm golfing. I'm on a golf course, breathing fresh air. And the only thing that matters at that point in time is my next golf shot. That relaxes me.
Yes, I've heard you saying this in multiple forums, yes. And yes, you're not leaving Unilever, but you're leaving HUL to go to Unilever. What will you miss the most about HUL?
I think people. And HUL has an amazing talent powerhouse. And what I'm going to miss the most are the colleagues and the people. I know I'm not very far. I'm still part of Unilever. I'll end up interacting, but I will not be working that closely with everybody. So I think that's what I'm going to miss the most. There's warmth, there's learning, there's kindness in this organization. I'm going to miss a lot of that.
Thank you, Ritesh. And we'll miss you too.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.